that, I shouldn't have that on there. Pardon me, folks. I'll just take that off. That was a bit of an oversight there. I'll get rid of that. So that was me. That was me putting up my thumbnail, as I do. Very creative, but you didn't need to see it. So there we go. What I want to talk about at the moment is the fact that we here in South Australia, for those of you that don't know where that is, those of you that don't watch me, of which there are many, many thousands, millions, billions in fact, that we are down the south of Australia, hence our name, South Australia. And I just want people to know, to get us in perspective, we're a few times bigger than friggin' Texas. For anyone from the United States who's a bit confused as to where South Australia is, because my understanding is that many of you would be confused about where Australia is in the first place. So what I want to talk about, though, is our particular state, because for a long time, and I can't tell you how long now, but for quite some time, in this article we're about to look at, maybe it'll tell me, we were one of the best states, one of the best places in the world in terms of dealing with COVID, because we didn't have a case for a long time, for months and months. And we locked our borders, we kept everybody out, particularly those people from New South Wales and Victoria should not have come in here, and they didn't. And we have, as a result of that, been pretty proud of our record. In fact, our Premier, Stephen Marshall, would often say, present and celebrate the fact that we had done pretty well for such a large period of time. However, there comes a time when we can't keep our borders closed forever. And so not only our international borders were closed, but our state borders were closed for some time. And we knew that with the Omicron variant in particular, it was going to spread really pretty rapidly when we did. So the Omicron, I think, variant entered Australia 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's running rampant in New South Wales and Victoria. And at the same time, the South Australian Premier decided to open up our borders as well to Victoria, New South Wales and other states. And in doing so, of course, we are no longer the best at keeping the virus out. There seems to be no way, in fact, that one could possibly ever get it. So I guess it's about us finding ways to confront what Omicron means and dealing with it, I guess. But we've already received an incredible outbreak. Remember, we had zero about 4 weeks ago. Zero. And we had that for a long time, and we were more than happy with that, even though we're all wearing masks, always keeping our social distancing and all that sort of stuff. And there were still those people that were, advocating that their freedom was being taken from them. And now I just wonder if those people wind up in hospital, whether they really think that being ill is having your freedom taken from you as well. Maybe it is. So what this has told us, though, is that it says here the state is already experiencing an outbreak of more than 100 cases per day. Actually, and this I think was this was an article on Thursday, and today 27% probability. Yeah, right. So the state is already experiencing an outbreak of more than 100 cases per day, something that was supposedly only a 27% probability in the first 300 days of the opening. And so now we're experiencing, I think, 683 or something cases reported yesterday, day before Christmas. So it has rapidly taken off here in South Australia. I don't know whether that because we're more virulent, whether we're more susceptible, but anyway, it has. And even though our state is about 92, 93% vaccinated, first dose vaccinated, a pretty high percentage, obviously the last second dose, and we're now looking at, of course, our booster shots. And so as a result of all of this, So they're listing. So what they've done is they've then ramped up the number of places that we can attend in order to, because, okay, I'll come back a bit. One of the experiences that we've had here in South Australia is that we haven't had to do a lot of testing, because if you don't have the virus in your community, then clearly you don't need to test a lot of people, because a lot of people aren't ill. And then once the virus hit, our testing situation became chaotic. We had people that were waiting sometimes up to 8 hours to be tested. So these would be people that had come in from interstate, maybe they were mandated to get tested, or they were people that were feeling ill, or they'd been in close contact with somebody who had contracted the virus, or who had been a close contact of someone who contacted the virus. So all these people suddenly need to be tested, and they were waiting for hours and hours and hours to get tested, because even though we had some sort of historical understandings of how this was going to work because of other countries and stuff, we knew that Omicron was going to run away with the infection rate, but we were slow on the uptake. So we were asleep at the wheel while the rest of the world was waking up to what Omicron did, because we were so confident that because we had dealt with the Delta strain for so long and not allowed it into our state, that when it came in, we didn't know what to do about it, and our government were sleeping. And I think that there are some really important lessons to learn about all of this. And we need to understand how, I think, other people, given how we've been, and even though businesses have had to close and we've had our lockdown and stuff, we had a very short lockdown in our state, but we've had lockdowns for around the borders. We've had restrictions in terms of number of people that were allowed into restaurants, into bars and so on. But there is one aspect of this that I did want to discuss, and that is this one. So given where we've been around all of this, many businesses have expressed anger and confusion that they were not contacted, and after hearing about the exposure through the media or social media, had to do their own risk assessments to determine which staff needed to isolate. And now the result of this has been that there have been many businesses that were floating along relatively nicely, even though there were some restrictions on. But, if you're a small business and you've got 4 or 5 people working for you, and then one of them comes to work and it's either contracted the virus or is a close contact to somebody who has, then everyone in that staff has to be isolated. So the whole business, therefore, has to close down. Now, we didn't have that problem before simply because we didn't have the virus circulating in our community. But now that we do have those people, we do have the virus circulating in our community, it's impacting businesses in ways that didn't impact them before. And I think a lot of people, this is why people are angry, because I don't think they understood necessarily what potentially was likely to happen as a result of having the virus in our community. So while people were angry because their freedoms were curtailed, because they had to wear masks and had to do that when they were in shopping centres and had to wait in queues and weren't allowed, only a certain number of people were allowed in venues and social distancing had to take place, all that sort of stuff, and poor old people had to do what they were told. Terrible, terrible. Now, all those people are getting upset because of the virus being present in our community. So it's almost like that we can't never seem to get it right. And this article also goes on to say some of that, and I'll just read this out in a bit. Some of that and the testing changes, which is what I'm talking about, were due to uncertainty surrounding the Omicron variant and the government's unsuccessful attempt to keep it out of South Australia. So as long as it was kept out of our state, we all would have been fine, even though there would have been those morons who still would have complained about their freedoms being curtailed. Now, folks, your freedom is really being curtailed, because if you're not vaccinated, if you get sick, if you infect somebody else and they're in a workplace and then that workplace has to close down because of your stupidity, then I'm sorry, but that's on you, buddy. Now, if you're simply being in close contact with somebody, whether they're vaccinated or not, and they have the virus, then a place would still have to be closed down. The point is that if you're going to infect other people, and you're more likely to if your viral load is higher, therefore unvaccinated, therefore you're creating more havoc than is necessary. So, and as a result of all of that, all the freedoms that you think you had or think that were taken away are going to be doubled. You're going to have more of those freedoms taken from you if you're unvaccinated and you infect somebody else than had it happened if you were double vaccinated and particularly boosted. So that's the way it is in South Australia at the moment. There's some important lessons for all of us to learn about that. Not to become complacent is the primary one. And secondly, just to make sure that at this particular point in time, we're becoming more and more aware of two things, I think. That it's likely that you will get the virus. And secondly, that there's a good chance that you will not be hospitalised and that it won't be a serious condition for you. And I'm certainly hoping that you don't get it at all. But if you do get the virus, I'm hoping that you're able to take care of yourself and the people around you whom you love. Thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.